Everybody's focusing on the outside world, and how there's a lot of things in the outside world you'll never be able to control. You can influence, but you can't control it. This, your mind, your emotions, your body, you have 100% control over what you do with these things, and that's where the game is won. You win the inner game, then you win the outer game. But a lot of people spent their life trying to win the outer game, they won, and they're miserable. So to me, success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. And so many people are focused on success still, which to me is like, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's like success is getting what you want. Fulfillment is living what you're made for. The biggest problem people have is they think they're not supposed to have any. And problems are the fuel for growth. Anybody who doesn't have problems is either totally asleep at the wheel or they don't have much of any kind of a life. No responsibility, nothing they're building. So I think the first thing is this misnomer that if I have a problem, there's something wrong with me or my life. And I think the second one is this delusion we've sold people on that getting what you want is gonna make you happy. So you could call success getting what you want. I don't define it that way, but that's how most people do. But then there's fulfillment. And fulfillment is living what you're made for. It's like, I think the biggest challenge people have, and the reason they're not able to respond to challenges, they're just thinking about themselves, and it's not that hard to meet your own needs. And it's nobody's fault. I mean, these little things in our pocket, these little mini computers we used to call phones, they're constantly conditioning you to instantly get what you want. And that's not how human relationship works. And that's sure as hell not how you build a business. And there's nothing wrong with going for success, but you really got to figure out what you're made for, and nobody knows in the beginning. So you start where you are and you do what's in front of you, you do what's next, and you keep growing until you start to discover, hey, this is my real passion, this is my real hunger and drive, and it can change. People go for 5, 6, 7 years, and then they usually question their business, their career, their body, their relationships. And then one of two things happens. They change direction and feel renewed, or they go, no, I got a great deal here, what the hell's wrong with me? And they recommit and they get stronger. But that's life. And if you don't grow, I don't give a damn how much you got going for you, you're gonna be miserable. Find somebody who has what you want, ideally maybe more than one person, 2 or 3, and figure out what are they doing different than you in their relationship? What do they believe different than you about relationship? If it's their body, what are they doing different? They're not lucky. They're doing things differently. You might be slightly biochemically different, but there's patterns there that you can see. And so instead of learning by trial and error, which can take decades you may never learn, Jim Rohn taught me success leaves clues, man. Find someone's got what you want, study what they do, every aspect of it, and then add yourself to it. And that's the pathway to speed of transformation. Your growth is the only limit to your happiness. If you're not happy, you're not growing in some area. And usually it's a place where you're blaming, you're pointing the finger. I don't care if it's government, don't get me wrong. People can be unfair, unjust, that's for sure happens. But you can't control that. You can't make it not happen. What you have to do is become stronger than any of it so you're free. Freedom comes from growth. Freedom does not come from control. Because control is an illusion. You can't control everybody. No matter how hard you try, you can't control what they think or feel. And not everybody's gonna be fair and just. And you, my dear friends, and I have not always been fair and just. Whether we admit it or not, it's just the nature of being a human being. But we can make the largest pattern fair and just and loving and powerful and serving and growing until it becomes the dominant thing inside you. And then you experience life as being great, not you're great. Life's great because you're living a great path. People that are scared to speak are thinking constantly, how am I doing? Am I good enough? Am I strong enough? You'll never get confidence. Confidence comes from doing something confidence is tying your shoes. Right? Confidence on Michael Jordan making 1,000 shots before you take a break. Every single day, 6 days a week. So you look at Jordan or you look at, LeBron or you look at anybody who's the best in the world at what they do and you go, aren't they lucky? But if you actually study them, you'll see they're doing things, they're practicing in private things that make them certain in public and they get rewarded for what they do in public.
Yeah.
And you got to do the same. Self-esteem is earned. It's only earned by you with yourself. You're not going to get self-esteem because everybody praises you. Someone can tell you your whole life that you're brilliant, you're a genius, you're beautiful, you're handsome, and you not believe it. Someone can tell you you're a piece of crap and you're never going to become anything. And there's a part you can say, I'll show you, as many people have, and then they develop drive out of it, right? So it's really, self-esteem comes from doing incredibly difficult things where you know you pushed yourself. It's not virtue signaling. It's not telling people about it. It's what you know inside your soul is true. The most important thing for self-esteem is to find something you care about more than yourself. As long as you're in your own head, the nature of the mind is reductionism, right? Good, bad, right, wrong, all those types of things. Of course, life is much more, many different hues than that. And so when you find something you care about, whether it's your kids or whether it's something, your job, your career, whether it's a mission you have, or it's something you want to bring to the world, nonprofit, it doesn't matter what it is. If you find something you care about more than you won't be thinking about yourself all the time, and all your self-esteem just goes out the window. I mean, it's just, when I hear it, it's just so mamby-pamby BS. You know, you're gonna battle with internal things within you and external things, but if you keep going, you're gonna eventually slay your dragons and you come out the hero of your own life, and you have something to share that isn't bullshit. It's not something you read somewhere, it's something you've lived.
Something you want.
And everybody can feel you've lived it because it's a different level of ownership, you know? And then, by the way, as soon as you do that, it happens again. You're called on another journey. You have a new level of challenge that you need to go on. It just never ends, but it makes life really, really beautiful. One of the things you have to understand about life is everything changes and everything ends. And that kind of sounds heavy on the front end, but it's a truth. If everything changes and everything ends, number one, it should make you appreciate what you have right now. And then my view is what's next is always better. If I make it so, it's my job to make it so. Your biography is not your destiny. And it doesn't matter what you've been through. What you decide now is what's going to control your life. What you decide each day going forward is going to decide your life. Look where I am right now. Because I wouldn't assemble the story that my past equals my future. The past only equals your future if you live there. If you're using a rear view mirror to guide yourself, you're going to crash. So what you've been through is horrific. What you've been through is unjust. I'm on your side. But if you hang on to it, you have no future, and you have no one to blame but yourself. Good times create weak people. Weak people create bad times. Bad times create strong people. Strong people create great times. It's good to be strong with yourself, but beating yourself up just lowers your energy. And when your energy gets lower, you produce less, right? You don't have the same level of joy. You don't have the impact that you want to have, nor do you have the excitement that you really want to have. So I look at it as something that it's worth earning your own self-esteem, but it's really not the secret. The secret is find something else you obsess about more than yourself, and you'll have a level of energy that will compel you over the long term. People ask me all the time, what does it take to be happy? And I always tell them it's really simple. One word, progress. Progress equals happiness. If you keep growing, you're gonna feel alive. And if you keep growing, you're gonna have more to give. And when you're growing and giving is when life is magnificent. It doesn't matter how many statues, Oscars they give you, or Emmys, or how much money you have in the bank. We've all seen people have all those things, and I get the phone call because they're depressed, or somebody commits suicide in that area. So it's really an inner game, and I think that's what's missing for us today.
Follow the Motivation Daily podcast. Every day, we upload speeches that don't just inspire, they transform.
I think it's important to realize wherever focus goes, energy flows. It's corny, but it's true, right? In fact, maybe an easier way of saying it is, we don't experience life. None of us do. We experience the life we focus on. So in any moment, what's wrong is always available. So is what's right. So it's not about being positive. It's about being intelligent, right? You know, when you're in a totally negative state and the world's going to end, and there are people like believing that in the next 12 years, the entire environment's going to collapse and they won't have a child. You got to look at the impact of what you're believing, and you got to look at and say, where's my focus going? I can always be upset about something. I can always find something to be joyous or at least grateful for, which leads to joy. And I think it's having that, learning to discipline your disappointments, not allow them to grow and to move on and to use whatever life is giving you. You can't be grateful and fearful simultaneously. You can't be angry and grateful simultaneously. So what I do is I start my day, I make those changes, and I close my eyes or I look out at the water and I think of 3 things that I'm grateful for just a minute each. And I do 2 strong things, and usually one simple thing like the wind in my hair or my daughter's smile or something of that nature. So I don't just get wired for unbelievable things. but that primes that nervous system. And then the second thing I do is I take 3 minutes, and it's kind of like a blessing or a prayer for the people around me, for the people I love. I start close, I send it out there, and there's been a lot of studies I'm sure you've read that Dalai Lama and others have done on compassion for strangers, what it does to your brain. And so I do it every day. And then the last 3 minutes I call 3 to Thrive, where I focus for a minute each on something I really want to make happen. But I don't sit there and pray for it, hope for it. It's like I give thanks for it as it's done. I see it as done, I experience it as done, I wire my reticular activating system. I can speak in shorthand to you about this. So now it's gonna notice anything that relates to that, but it has a joyous feeling to it as well. And I'm done in 10 minutes, and I'm ready to rock and roll. So, I do my cold plunge, and I do the parts of my normal daily ritual, but that one I do. And then I'll have like 60 seconds, of joy, or 60 seconds of peace that I'll do in the middle of the day, and I'll just think of one of those things if I want to reactivate it. You can have crappy self-esteem and achieve a hell of a lot. Now, the real question is, what do you want? And I think if you want an extraordinary life, which my definition of that is life on your terms. Like, what's my idea? It might be different than yours completely. Some people, it's 3 beautiful children, a white picket fence. Some people, it's building a multi-billion-dollar business. Somebody else, it's writing poetry, right? So instead of looking for somebody else, it's like, okay, what do you really want from your life? And aligning yourself with moving forward towards what you really want. And I think if you can do that in a way that also you feel is serving others simultaneously, there's a sense of meaning in life that can't be replaced by self-esteem or praise or compliments or being nice to yourself. And I don't think it's bad to be tough on yourself. I'm pretty tough on myself, I'll be honest with you. But I'm much better at celebrating now. And I also realize being overly tough on yourself usually comes by making, comparisons that don't make sense. But like you look at somebody like Steph Curry, and you see this guy, shoot the ball from almost half court, chomping on the side of his thing, and he doesn't even look. He turns around and just waves because he knows it's in already, and there's swish, and the crowd goes crazy. And people look at that and go, he's unbelievable. He's unbelievable. He's the greatest three-point shooter in history. There's no one like him. But what they don't pay attention to is that isn't like a little gift, right? He shoots 500 shots every single day, never less than that, 7 days a week, for more than 15 years. His 15-year professional career. He's been doing it since before he was in college. His dad really trained him. So think of that, 3,500 shots a week, 168,000 shots in a year, 2.52 million shots in his 15-year NBA career, so he can make 3,600 shots. Not even 1/10%. I tell people, you get rewarded in public for what you practice in private. Your training of your nervous system to do things is what really matters most. And you can't just be in your head. I think the problem is that people don't have something that they're wanting to serve more than themselves. That's where my energy comes from. I don't have to work in a day of my life. Why the hell do I do all this crazy stuff? Because it's so much more interesting to be in the game of life and keep growing and expanding and being challenged. That's what makes you feel alive. And are there problems? With 105 companies, I can promise you. But if I thought my life was supposed to be problem-free, I would be really stressed out. And if I was just doing it for me, I would have stopped a long time ago. It's like, I know you've asked me a lot of times about confidence. You just mentioned it again. Yes. Is it a lack of confidence? No, it's a lack of mission, right? Because what happens is when you have something you want to serve, if it's your child and everything's on the line, you won't come up with answers you'll never come up with for yourself. Right? So it's like having that sense of mission. And then I think the next problem is that people think they have to know how. I call it the tyranny of how. You get all excited, I'm gonna do this, and then your brain goes, I've never done it before, oh my God, what did I say? I don't know how to do this. And they tend to focus on how to do it. And when you start with how, you're screwed. Most people major in minor things. They know more about some actress's personal life than they know about their own physical body or their vitality or their energy or their emotion or their business or their career. And so what matters? A few subjects, your body, because your energy matters. That energy is low. Everything I just said is worthless to you because you're just going to go, he's talking too fast and there's a lot going on and hopefully the future will be better. Because when you're low energy, you don't use your full intelligence or ability. The point of the matter is most people, that energy has been lower. So you need energy. You need emotion. If you don't know how to master your emotions start wars. Emotion creates peace. Emotion gets you laid. Emotion gets you children. Emotion is what can make that business work or fail. And most people don't know how to direct their own emotions. What's another lesson? You got to look at your own financial world. If you don't master it, it's going to create enormous stress. Your relationships are everything, as we've already said. Your business or your career, or hopefully it's your mission. And then there's the spiritual side of life. So you can take a half dozen areas and go, let me find who's genius in this area and let me go learn from them. Let me go read, let me listen to podcasts. Let me be conscious about feeding my brain things that are going to give me not only inspiration, but insight and skill and tools. You know, Jim Rohn used to say, my original teacher, he used to say, Tony, what happens if I've got a cup of coffee here? And he'd say, what if your worst enemy drops sugar in your coffee? What's going to happen? And I'd go, well, you'd have sweet coffee. And he goes, what if your best friend, your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, your loved one drops one drop of strychnine? I said, you'd be dead. He goes, that's right. Life is both sugar and strychnine, so watch your coffee. His whole thing was stand guard at the door of your brain. But some people take that and go, oh my God, you can kill me. It was a metaphor. These people are not so toxic. They're toxic because you give them energy. So if your mom's crazy and constantly criticizing you and it drives you nuts, just go, that's my mom. That's her way of showing love. And I find a new perspective. And no matter what she does, just stay in a beautiful state and love on her and think, boy, think of all that she cares and feels for, all that she's frustrated in life, or all that she's going through that's made her this way. And think, God, I don't have to go through this. I can love her. We all have a pattern of focusing on what we have and at times on what's missing. Which one do you think most people spend more time focusing on, what they have or what's missing?
What's missing?
What do you focus more on?
What's missing?
Yes, the focus on what's missing is not something that comes with someone who is a failure. It comes very much with people who are very successful. And the question then becomes, if you're always focused on missing, how can you sustain happiness?
You're in a permanent place of lack.
That's correct. So scarcity is there. So you'll have drive, right, to keep staying on the hamster wheel of achievement, but you're not going to see much fulfillment, and not in a sustainable way. It's impossible. It has nothing to do with you or me, right? It's just software. And we got a soul. We're not software, but you run your software so often, you start thinking your mind is you versus my mind is a tool that I'm going to use, or if I don't use it, it's going to use me. I think passion is the genesis of genius. If you've got enough passion, you're going to find answers nobody else does. But most people run out of fuel, meaning they get tired, they get exhausted, they get burnt out, they get, the law of familiarity. They're around something so much they take it a little bit for granted. And I've managed to see something in myself that I found in every great leader that I've ever respected, and that is the sustained hunger. Hunger is the number one factor. When I see somebody, I don't care what age they are, I don't care what their background is, if they're hungry to improve, to change, to make something happen. I mean, if you look at Richard Branson, he's as hungry today in his late 60s as he was at 16 years old in that crypt starting Virgin. Leaders anticipate, losers react. If you can anticipate what's coming, you can really take advantage. If you wait till it hits you, you're in trouble. So I think we're in a time where it's gonna be a better year if you're willing to be better, right? Winter can be a beautiful time. As you've heard me say before, you can freeze to death, or you can ski and snowboard and have a great time with your family and build something. And so then when spring comes, you can really take advantage. But if you look at the world, the most successful businesses started in a winter. 68% of the Fortune 1000 were started in either a recession or a depression. I don't care if you're talking about Disney or Exxon in the depression, or Pizza Hut or FedEx in a recession, or Apple in a recession. So this is your time, but you have to get your head straight and you got to get your energy strong. And that's not easy when most people are shoved in their houses and isolated and heard nothing but fear. So you got to take back control. I grew up in a pretty rough environment. My mom was a beautiful soul, but when she drank alcohol and she mixed it with prescription drugs, it was a different creature, and it was a violent creature. If my mother had been the mother I wanted her to be, the mother she should have been, I would not be the man I'm proud to be today. Because I had to become a practical psychologist way before any schooling, figure out when's she gonna go in the mood, how do I change her state, how do I protect her from the kids, it felt life and death, and it was to some extent. So I developed skills at such a young age. Then when I learned things, I just added to my skills, but I had a core sense of certainty that I could turn anybody around because it started with my mother. But if your parents, if the people around you said all the things you thought they should have, if they had just not been toxic, if they'd encouraged you, you wouldn't have any muscle. And right now you don't have any muscle because you're using that as the excuse, if you're thinking that. And I'm not attacking you, brothers and sisters. I'm calling to you because I know you're more. Otherwise, I'd just keep my mouth shut. You've been hypnotized by a culture of weakness. So I could have been messed up for life, but I didn't. Because something inside me says, I'm responsible for this life. And part of that's because I started reading when I was 13, 14 biographies of people, the greatest people in history, and reading their lives and finding out, guess what? Their lives were far from perfect. Some of them had worse lives than I had. But when you have no reference and all you do is go online, you talk to other people, making everybody else toxic, and I'm like this, and they didn't do that, then you get to have this shitty life just like those other people. Why are they online so much? Because they don't have a life, right? Don't be one of those. Free yourself. I think anybody gets wired to grow and give is going to have a really fulfilling life. It doesn't matter what you choose to do, you're going to be alive because you're going to make progress. And because you made progress, you have something to give. And we all, like, some people think they just want to get, but you get, and it's pretty damn boring and it doesn't really expand your sense of identity of who you are. But if you're constantly growing and then taking what you learn, you're so excited about it, you share with other people and their life gets better, whether that be software you make or dresses you design or, something you do in the health space that really gets people to enjoy their food while they're eating well. If you have those passions and you keep growing, there's no limit. It doesn't matter what happens in the short term with a pandemic or with a drop in the economy or whatever the case may be. These are all temporary when you realize life is lived in decades, not in days.
Well, the simple part that most people don't understand is that every thought we think and every word we speak is creating our future. It's as though our thoughts go out into the universe and are accepted and brought back to us as experience. Now, that is a very simple thing, but most people don't get it. They don't understand it. They've never heard it before, and they think it's ridiculous. But if you can really accept the fact that every time you think a thought and every time you speak a word, you are literally painting your future, making your dinner, whatever you want to call it, you are creating, and you're creating your own life. And this is simple, but it's not easy to accept.
There are a lot of things that are beyond our control. But what you do have control over is how you react to whatever happens in your life.
Stop focusing on what you do not have and shift your consciousness to an appreciation for all you are and all that you have. Remember, what you think about is what expands. If you think about what you don't have, then what you don't have will expand. If you think about what you don't like in someone, then what you don't like in someone will expand.
So when you catch a negative thought, just think to yourself, this is an old thought. I no longer choose to think that way. Then find a positive thought to substitute for it as quickly as you can. Remember, you want to feel good as much as possible. Thoughts of bitterness, resentment, blame, and guilt make you feel miserable. And that is a habit you really want to release.
When we say a joyful world, that means everything that you want has happened. So this is all that you're looking for. So all that you need to do is commit yourself to creating it, to create a peaceful, joyful, and loving world, both for yourself and everybody around you. Every day in the morning, if you start your day with this simple thought in your mind, that today, wherever I go, I will create a peaceful, loving, and joyful world. If you fall down 100 times a day, what does it matter? For a committed man, there is no such thing as failure. If you fall down 100 times, 100 lessons to be learned. If you commit yourself like this, you're creating what you really care for. Now your mind gets organized. Once your mind gets organized, the way you think is the way you feel. Your emotion will get organized. Once your thought and emotion is organized, your energies will get organized in the same direction. Once your thought, emotion, and energies are organized, your very body will get organized. Once all these four are organized in one direction, your ability to create and manifest what you want is phenomenal. You are the creator.
%95 of your life is coming from the subconscious. So all you have to do is look at your life and just look at it and say, for what? I say, what comes to you that you want and it comes to you easily, you have programs to allow that to happen. But what you struggle with, what you work hard on, what you have to put a lot of effort into, why are you working so hard? And the answer is simple, because you have an invisible program that is sabotaging you from that point. So now all of a sudden you say, well, what do I need to change? I say, well, look at your life and tell me what you're having trouble with, because that's the direct expression of a program that's not supporting you.
There are many ways to get the things that we want for ourselves in our lives. But basically, it all begins with how we choose to think. As you think, so shall you be. 7 little words that I think are perhaps the most important things that we can learn and master in our lives. This old proverb notion that I become what I think about all day long. And once you know that what you think about is what expands, you start getting real careful about what you think about. You don't allow your thoughts to be on anything that you don't want or that you wouldn't want to have manifest or show up for you in your life.
Crossing that river of change, the creative process now gets exciting, because what thoughts do you want to fire and wire in your brain? What kind of attention and intention do you want to place so that that becomes the loudest voice in your head? Mm-hmm. And if you keep practicing it, the hardware becomes a software program, and it'll say, Jay, you can do anything. Jay, you live in no time and accomplish everything. Jay, you're unlimited. You just got to hang with it. On the other side of this is greatness. Whatever you want to program in there, you get to program in there.
Do we love ourselves enough to put the energy, to put the work into being honest, truthful, and factual with ourselves so that we can become the best version of ourselves possible? Ultimately, it boils down to something that simple. And it can be as complex as we choose to make it. But as a scientist, I have to tell you, life is simple, nature is simple, until we make it complex with symbols and words and mathematics. So it all comes down to love. Do we love ourselves enough to put the energy into being honest with ourselves about who we are?
As we learn to love ourselves and trust our higher power, we become co-creators with the infinite spirit of a loving world. Our love for ourselves moves us from being victims to being winners. Our love for ourselves attracts wonderful experiences to us. Have you ever noticed that people who feel good about themselves are naturally attractive? They usually have a quality about them that is just wonderful. They are happy with their lives. Things come to them easily and effortlessly.
Nothing else will work for you until you recognize that you are the creator of your own life and that no one else is to blame for your circumstances. Call it karma, if you will. You may not believe in the concept, but all successful people know it to be true in some way or another. No one can change himself until he realizes that he is the one creating himself and that his self-image is not fixed in stone, but constantly changing. Why is it that one day you can feel happy and confident, and the next day feel sad and depressed? Most people will say it's because of what is happening to them that causes their fluctuations in mood. But this is giving power to the outside world, which is actually completely powerless to affect your inside world of thoughts and emotions, unless you give it full permission to do so. Owning full responsibility for one's thoughts and emotions is not a common choice in this world. It's much more comfortable to believe that something else is causing them, because it takes away the pressure of personal responsibility. Why own your experience of life when you can just sit back and blame everyone else for it? Well, you have the freedom to choose, but I strongly suggest that you choose more wisely from now on and begin to choose a path of personal growth rather than one of stagnation or decline. I challenge you to re-own your power. From this day forward, you will begin to break the chains of your own making. No longer will you wallow in sadness or self-pity. No longer will you blame someone or something else for your misfortune. You will awaken to your power of self-direction and control. You will choose better than you have in the past and make new habits of thought, feeling, and action that lead you to the life of your dream. It is often in the darkest times that people find the light, because the darkness motivates us to find a way out of it. Whatever you are going through right now, I encourage you to think of all of it as good. The negative experiences in life challenge us to be better and do better. It has led you right here, which is a wonderful thing. Feel grateful for your challenges because they guide you to exactly where you need to be. If you want to have a good life, then you have to practice seeing everyone and everything as inherently good. How can you be happy when your thoughts are anything less than pleasant? You can't. Happiness is a choice and a habit. You may see the world right now in a very gloomy or disempowering way. But it is simply a habit, and habits can be changed. At any moment, you can choose to see things differently. You can choose to stop judging that person or situation and start accepting it for what it is. You can choose to love the people who hate you. You can choose peace rather than argument. It is all a choice. We all walk around with different colored lenses on. One person walks around with gray lenses and says, "Look how sad. Everything is gray." While another person walks around with blue lenses and says, "Look how beautiful. Everything is blue." Who is right? And who is wrong? And who is to say? The world is of your own making. If you are unhappy in your life, it is only because you have been habitually perceiving life in an unhappy way. All it takes to turn things around is to re-own your power of decision. Snap yourself out of autopilot mode and start bringing conscious attention to your thoughts and feelings. They are not set in stone. How you see and experience things are changeable, not according to what happens outside of you, but according to what you choose to experience within yourself.
The most enjoyable moments are the ones where we are fully immersed in what we are doing. When we are intently focused on one single thing is when we experience peace of mind. In other words, no thought. Since the act of thinking is responsible for much unhappiness and suffering in the world, it would be worthwhile to transcend thought altogether. Without thought, there is only peace and pure bliss. Most people can't imagine what it would be like to not think. Thinking is the human condition, but it can be a blessing or a curse. Thinking is actually not necessary in many cases. There lies an incredible intelligence in our bodies that has the ability to guide us through life successfully. More successfully, in fact, than if we were to think our way through life. Thinking clouds our instinct and intuition and can actually inhibit our progress. When we are completely free of thought and in the present moment, we can make decisions with ease and experience happiness in everything we do. Even the simplest of things can bring you immense joy when you experience them as they are. That is to say, experience them without judging or labeling them in any way. You've experienced this state of no thought before. Think back to some of the best moments of your entire life. It's very likely that those moments were spent in a state of no thought, and that's exactly why those moments were so enjoyable. There are a variety of ways that you can get into the present moment and experience no thought, but the easiest of them all is to simply do the activity that brings you the most joy. Perhaps it's playing a musical instrument, reading, hiking outdoors, or spending time with your children. Whatever it is that you thoroughly enjoy, you should do more of it. Immerse yourself in the activities that get you out of your head and into the present moment, because those activities serve a great purpose. They serve the purpose of allowing you to realize your true nature and showing you that joy and happiness is your natural state beneath all the layers of thought you have accumulated over the years. While these activities may seem like only temporary relief from your pain, they actually allow you to evolve and heal your pain. When you find your bliss and immerse yourself in it, you are one step closer to realizing that happiness is always available to you. The more bliss you experience, the easier it is to find it again. Eventually, you will be able to feel happy at your own choosing, no matter the circumstances. Do more of what you love to do, and you will experience more happiness and have more love to give to others. Many people who seem cold and withdrawn from the world are people who feel as if they have little to live for. If they only discovered their passion and lost themselves in artistic expression of that passion, they would have more to live for than they could now imagine. Doing what you love and what makes you happy is not selfish. It is one of the most generous things you could do for others. Only when your cup is full can you give anything away. Find your bliss so that others may be inspired to do the same.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something real today. Nobody is coming to save you. I know that might sound hard, but sometimes the truth is hard. You keep waiting on a phone call, a breakthrough, a miracle, a lucky moment, but life does not work like that. The moment you truly change is the moment you accept full responsibility for where you are and where you're going. Once you stop waiting on somebody else, you unlock a power you didn't even know you had. See, most people don't fail because they're not talented. They fail because they don't act. They think about it. They pray about it. They talk about it, but they don't move. And let me tell you something. Faith without work is dead. You can believe all you want, but belief doesn't work unless you do. You've got to force yourself to take action, especially on the days you don't feel like it. Nobody told you it was going to be easy. Nobody promised you comfort. Success is uncomfortable. Growth hurts. Change feels scary. But staying stuck should scare you more than failing ever will. The difference between winners and losers isn't intelligence, it's action. Winners move even when they're afraid. Losers wait until fear disappears, and fear never disappears. You keep thinking somebody's going to show up and fix it. Your parents already did their part. Your friends can't live your life for you. The world doesn't owe you understanding. Life responds to effort. When you move, life moves. When you sit still, life passes you by. That's just the rules of the game. Stop asking for motivation and start building discipline. Motivation comes and goes. Discipline shows up every day. Discipline says, I don't feel like it, but I'm doing it anyway. And when you do that long enough, something powerful happens. You build momentum. And once momentum kicks in, stopping you becomes almost impossible. You don't need approval. You don't need everyone to believe in you. You need to decide. Decide to wake up earlier. Decide to work harder. Decide to stop making excuses. Decide to become who you said you wanted to be. Because the truth is simple: if you don't save yourself, nobody else will. Force yourself to take action today, not tomorrow, not next week. Right now, your future is waiting on the move you're afraid to make. Most people want success, but very few want responsibility. They want the results without owning the process. They want the reward without accepting the weight that comes with it. The real turning point in any person's life happens the moment they stop blaming circumstances and start owning their choices. Not your past, not your parents, not your enemies, not the economy, you. When you finally accept that where you are right now is largely the result of decisions you made, something powerful happens. You stop feeling like a victim and start acting like a leader in your own life. Personal responsibility doesn't mean you weren't treated unfairly. It doesn't mean life didn't hurt you. It means you refuse to let what happened to you control what happens next. See, pain is real, setbacks are real, but excuses don't build futures. Every successful person you admire had a moment where they realized no one was coming to rescue them. That realization wasn't depressing. It was freeing. Because once you understand that the responsibility is yours, the power becomes yours too. You can't change what you don't own. As long as you keep pointing fingers, you give your power away. Every time you say, they did this to me, or I would have made it if, you hand control of your destiny to someone else. But when you say, this is on me, now you can fix it. Responsibility is not a punishment, it's permission to change your life. It means you no longer have to wait for the world to adjust, you adjust. A lot of people misunderstand responsibility. They think it means pressure, stress, or blame. No. Responsibility means clarity. It means waking up knowing your results are connected to your effort. If you don't like your life, responsibility gives you the roadmap to change it. If your finances are struggling, your habits matter. If your dreams aren't moving, your actions matter. If your growth is slow, your discipline matters. That awareness hurts at first, but it also motivates like nothing else. When you take responsibility, excuses lose their power. You stop negotiating with your comfort zone. You stop explaining why today isn't the right day. You stop waiting for motivation and start working with discipline. Responsible people don't feel better than everyone else. They act better. They understand that feelings don't build success, actions do. They show up tired. They work when nobody is clapping. They stay consistent even when progress feels invisible. Personal responsibility also builds confidence. Not fake confidence, but real confidence, the kind that comes from keeping promises to yourself. Every time you do what you said you would do, you strengthen your self-respect. And self-respect changes how you walk, how you talk, how you decide. You stop settling because you know what you're capable of. You stop lowering standards because you've proven to yourself that you can rise. The moment responsibility becomes your habit, excuses become uncomfortable. Blame feels lazy, waiting feels dangerous. You understand that time is moving whether you move or not. Responsible people don't wait for perfect conditions. They create progress with what they have. They know that consistency beats talent, effort beats luck, and ownership beats entitlement every single time. Success doesn't start with opportunity. It starts with accountability. And accountability starts the day you look in the mirror and say, this is my life, and I'm responsible for where it goes. That moment doesn't just change your mindset, it changes your direction. Most people sit around waiting to feel motivated before they do anything, and that's exactly why they stay stuck. Motivation is unreliable. It shows up when it wants to and disappears without warning. If your progress depends on how you feel, your future will always be unstable. Action doesn't follow motivation. Motivation follows action. The moment you start moving, even when you don't feel ready, your energy begins to change. But too many people have it backward. They wait for the spark instead of striking the match. Action is what separates dreamers from doers. Everybody has ideas. Everybody has plans. Everybody says, day, but success doesn't care about intentions. It responds to movement. You don't need to understand the whole path. You just need to take the next step. Clarity doesn't come from thinking, it comes from doing. Once you act, you learn. Once you learn, you adjust. And once you adjust, progress starts to show. Waiting feels safe because it protects you from failure. As long as you don't act, you don't have to face rejection, embarrassment, or mistakes. But that safety is an illusion. While you're waiting, time is passing, opportunities are expiring, and confidence is shrinking. Fear grows in stillness. It feeds on hesitation. The fastest way to weaken fear is to move directly toward it. Action exposes fear for what it really is, just a feeling, not a fact. You don't need to feel confident to act. Confidence is built after you take action, not before. Every small step forward proves to your mind that you're capable. And once your mind sees evidence, it starts cooperating. But if you never act, your mind never gets proof. That's why people stay trapped in self-doubt. They haven't given themselves a reason to believe. Discipline is choosing action over excuses. It's doing the work when motivation is gone, when progress feels slow, and when nobody is watching. Discipline doesn't care about mood. It doesn't wait for perfect conditions. It understands that consistency beats intensity every time. 1 hour repeatedly will outperform a single burst of inspiration that fades after a week. Action also builds momentum. At first, it's hard. It feels heavy. Everything resists you. But once momentum kicks in, stopping becomes harder than continuing. The hardest part is always the beginning. That's why forcing yourself to start is the most powerful skill you can develop. Start tired, start scared, start imperfect. Just start. People often overestimate how much action they need. You don't need to change your whole life in one day. You need to make one decision and follow it with one action. Then another, and another. Those small actions compound. They stack. They quietly reshape your identity. One day you look back and realize you're no longer the person who waits. You're the person who moves. Action turns potential into reality. Without action, talent is wasted, dreams rot, and time disappears. The world doesn't reward those who feel ready. It rewards those who are willing to move before they are. Every step you take teaches you something you could never learn by standing still. And once you understand that waiting no longer feels safe, it feels expensive. Waiting has ruined more dreams than failure ever could. People convince themselves that help is coming, that someone will notice their potential, that the right connection or perfect opportunity will appear at just the right time. That belief feels comforting, but it's dangerous. Life does not reward those who wait to be chosen. It rewards those who choose themselves. The moment you realize no one is responsible for rescuing you, your mindset begins to shift from hope to ownership. Depending on external help keeps you passive. It trains your mind to look outward instead of inward. You start measuring your progress by what others do for you instead of what you do for yourself. And the longer you wait, the heavier waiting becomes. It slowly erodes urgency. Days turn into years, and suddenly you're explaining why you never started instead of celebrating how far you've come. The truth is, people are busy saving themselves. Everyone has their own battles, their own fears, their own priorities. Expecting someone else to carry your dreams is unfair to them and damaging to you. When you accept that, you stop feeling abandoned and start feeling empowered. You no longer see the absence of help as rejection. You see it as a signal to step up. Waiting for help also weakens confidence. Each day you don't act reinforces the belief that you can't move without permission or support. Over time, that belief hardens into identity. You stop seeing yourself as capable and start seeing yourself as dependent. Breaking that cycle requires a conscious decision to act without guarantees, without applause, and without reassurance. Self-reliance doesn't mean you never receive help. It means you don't depend on it to begin. The strongest people move first and attract support later, once others see your effort, momentum, and commitment. They're more likely to join you. But help follows action. It rarely precedes it. The world respects movement, not potential. When you stop waiting, your standards change. You stop asking, what if I fail? And start asking, what if I don't try? That shift alone changes behavior. You become proactive instead of reactive. You stop spending time explaining your situation and start spending time improving it. You realize that even small actions done consistently can outperform waiting for one big break. There's also a hidden cost to waiting that people don't talk about: regret. Regret doesn't come from doing too much. It comes from doing too little, from not speaking up, from not starting, from watching others live the life you imagine for yourself. That regret is heavier than rejection, heavier than failure, heavier than hard work. And once time passes, you can't negotiate with it. Choosing yourself requires courage. It means acting when no one is clapping, when results aren't immediate, and when doubt is loud. But each time you move without help, you strengthen trust in yourself. You prove that you don't need rescue, you need resolve. And resolve changes everything. When you understand that no one is coming to save you, you stop waiting at the door and stop bidding your own way forward. You become the help you were hoping for. And from that moment on, progress is no longer delayed by expectation. It's driven by action. Excuses sound reasonable, but they are expensive. They cost time, momentum, confidence, and eventually self-respect. Everyone has excuses. Being tired is real. Being afraid is real. Being overwhelmed is real. But excuses don't care about your dreams, and success doesn't negotiate with them. The difference between people who change their lives and people who stay stuck is not who has fewer problems. It's who refuses to let excuses make decisions for them. Discipline is doing what needs to be done even when every excuse feels valid. It's choosing progress over comfort. Comfort always asks for today. Discipline thinks about tomorrow. Excuses speak softly and kindly. They say, "You deserve a break. Start tomorrow. You've already done enough." Discipline is quieter but stronger. It doesn't argue. It simply acts. And over time, that quiet consistency becomes unstoppable. Most people don't realize how dangerous excuses are because they don't show up as failure. They show up as delay. Delay feels harmless. One missed day doesn't seem like much. One skipped workout, one unfinished task, one postponed decision, it all feels small. But excuses compound just like habits do. What starts as rest slowly becomes avoidance. What starts as patience turns into procrastination. And one day you wake up far from where you intended to be. Discipline creates structure when motivation disappears. Motivation is emotional, discipline is intentional. Motivation depends on how you feel. Discipline depends on what you decide. Feelings change. Decisions shape identity. Every disciplined action sends a message to your mind. I can be trusted. Every excuse sends the opposite message. Over time, you become who your habits say you are, not who your intentions claim to be. Excuses protect the ego, but sabotage the future. They keep you comfortable by avoiding risk, rejection, and effort. Discipline accepts discomfort as the price of growth. It understands that growth always demands sacrifice of time, ease, and sometimes approval. Disciplined people don't enjoy discomfort. They simply value results more than relief. When discipline becomes your standard, excuses start to feel uncomfortable. Skipping the work doesn't feel like freedom anymore. It feels like betrayal. You begin to crave consistency more than convenience. You stop asking if you feel like it and start asking if it aligns with your goals. That shift changes how you move through life. Discipline also simplifies decisions. When standards are clear, there's less debate. You don't negotiate with yourself every day. You already know what needs to be done. That clarity reduces mental fatigue and builds momentum. Instead of wasting energy deciding, you invest energy doing. People often think discipline is harsh or restrictive. In reality, it's freeing. It frees you from guilt, regret, and self-doubt. It frees you from constantly starting over. It gives you control in a world that feels unpredictable. When you're disciplined, circumstances don't dictate your effort, you do. Excuses will always be available. There will always be reasons to stop, slow down, or quit. Discipline doesn't eliminate excuses, it ignores them. It understands that progress isn't made on easy days. It's made on the days that show up, but do anyway. Every disciplined action, no matter how small, is a vote for the person you want to become. And over time, those votes add up. Excuses fade. Confidence grows. Momentum builds. Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. Fear feels powerful when you stand still. It grows in silence, in overthinking, in imagination. The mind starts creating worst-case scenarios, replaying past failures, and predicting rejection before it ever happens. But fear is not a warning of danger most of the time. It's a signal that you're standing at the edge of growth. The problem is not fear itself. The problem is allowing fear to make decisions for you. Most people believe fear disappears before action. That's a lie. Fear disappears because of action. When you don't move, fear controls the story. It tells you that you're not ready, not good enough, not capable. But the moment you take a step forward, fear loses its authority. It doesn't vanish instantly, but it weakens. Each action chips away at it, proving that fear was exaggerating. Fear survives on uncertainty and asks what if, and never answers the question, what if you fail? What if you embarrass yourself? What if it doesn't work? But action turns what if into now I know. Knowledge replaces imagination. Experience replaces assumption. And once fear is exposed to reality, it shrinks. Reality is never as scary as what the mind creates in isolation. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's movement in spite of it. Brave people are not fearless, and they're decisive. They feel the same doubts, the same anxiety, the same hesitation. The difference is they refuse to let those feelings decide their future. They understand that fear is a reaction, not a command. Every time you avoid action because of fear, fear grows stronger. Avoidance teaches the mind that fear is dangerous and should be obeyed. But every time you move forward despite fear, the mind learns a new lesson. I can survive this. And lesson builds resilience. And resilience builds confidence. Fear also loses power through repetition. The first step is always the hardest. The first call. The first risk. But the second is easier. The third is easier still. Soon, what once terrified you becomes routine. Not because the task changed, but because you did. Fear tells you to wait until you feel ready. Action teaches you that readiness is built along the way. Nobody feels ready at the beginning. Readiness is earned through movement, mistakes, and adjustment. Waiting for confidence before acting is like waiting to be fit before going to the gym. Confidence is the result, not the requirement. Fear often disguises itself as logic. It sounds reasonable. It says, no, it's not the right time. You need more preparation. Or be realistic. But growth has never been comfortable or perfectly timed. If you wait for fear to approve your plans, you'll never move. Fear's job is to protect you from uncertainty, not to help you grow. When you move forward, even in small ways, you regain control. Fear thrives when you feel powerless. Action restores power. It reminds you that you are not helpless. You are capable of responding, adapting, and learning. That realization is empowering. Fear never completely disappears at higher levels. It evolves. New goals bring new fears. Bigger dreams bring bigger doubts. But once you know that fear shrinks with action, it stops being a barrier and becomes a signal. A signal that you're moving towards something meaningful. Progress doesn't require fearlessness, it requires forward motion. Step by step, fear loses ground. And eventually, what once controlled you becomes something you barely listen to at all. Consistency looks boring from the outside, but it is the most powerful force behind any lasting success. People celebrate breakthroughs, but they ignore the quiet days that made those breakthroughs possible. Momentum is not created by dramatic moves. It is created by repeated actions done long enough to compound. Most people quit right before momentum shows up because they mistake slow progress for no progress. In the beginning, consistency feels unrewarding. You work, you show up, you try, and nothing seems to change. That's the danger zone. Results lag behind effort, and if you don't understand that delay, you'll stop too soon. Momentum is invisible before it becomes undeniable. It's like pushing a heavy object. At first it doesn't move. Then it inches forward, and suddenly it starts rolling on its own. Consistency builds identity. When you do something daily, it stops being an activity and becomes who you are. You're no longer trying. You're committed. That shift changes behavior automatically. You don't rely on willpower anymore. You rely on habit. And habits are powerful because they remove decision fatigue. You don't debate whether to act. You act because that's what you do. Small actions repeated daily outperform rare bursts of effort. People who go all in once a month don't beat people who show up a little every day. Momentum favors persistence over intensity. 10 minutes daily will beat 2 hours once in a while. Consistency keeps you connected to your goal even on low energy days. Momentum also changes how resistance feels. At the start, resistance is loud, everything feels hard. But as momentum builds, resistance quiets down. Action becomes easier, faster, and more natural. What once required discipline now requires less effort. You move from forcing yourself to flowing forward. Consistency teaches patience. It trains you to trust the process instead of chasing instant rewards. That patience becomes a competitive advantage because most people give up when progress is slow. While they quit, you continue, and over time, that gap becomes impossible to ignore. Momentum compounds confidence. Each completed action reinforces belief in yourself. You stop doubting your ability to follow through. You become reliable to yourself. That self-trust spills into every area of life: decision, making, relationships, leadership, and resilience. Consistency also protects you during hard times. Motivation disappears when life hits you. Discipline keeps you moving anyway. Momentum carries you through seasons when energy is low and challenges are high. You don't stop because stopping feels harder than continuing. People often think success comes from one big decision. In reality, it comes from thousands of small ones made correctly. Wake up or snooze, act or delay, commit or quit. Each choice is small, but together they shape your future. Momentum is fragile at first and unstoppable later. That's why the early stage requires commitment, not emotion. Once momentum is built, it begins to pull you forward even on days you doubt yourself. Consistency doesn't guarantee instant results, but it guarantees progress. And progress, sustained long enough, becomes transformation. When you understand that, you stop chasing motivation and start protecting momentum, because momentum is what turns effort into outcome.
There is one truth about success that many of us overlook. Talent is overrated. Intelligence is not enough. What truly separates those who achieve their goals from those who fall short is consistency. Not the kind of consistency that happens when it's easy, when we feel motivated, or when circumstances are favorable. I'm talking about the kind of consistency that requires effort. The kind you have to force yourself into when everything inside you screams for comfort and convenience. Today, I want to share with you 5 key principles that will help you embrace consistency even when it's hard. Because when you learn to force yourself to be consistent, you don't just change your habits, you change your life. Motivation is fleeting. It's like a spark. It burns bright, but it fades quickly. We all know that feeling when motivation hits, that sudden rush of energy, that excitement to start something new. It's intoxicating. But what happens when that feeling fades? What happens when the early morning alarm goes off and you no longer feel that drive? If you rely on motivation alone, you'll only show up when it's convenient, when it feels good, when it's easy. But discipline is what keeps you moving forward, even when you don't feel like it. Think about elite athletes. Think about the greatest musicians, the most successful entrepreneurs, the people who have truly made an impact. Do you think they wake up every single day brimming with motivation, eager to tackle every challenge? No, but they show up anyway. They push through exhaustion, doubt, discomfort, and even failure because they understand that success is not built on how we feel in the moment. It's built on what we commit to over time. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't isn't talent, luck, or intelligence. It's the willingness to keep going even when the excitement is gone. It's about embracing the grind, trusting the process, and knowing that the small, consistent actions you take today are shaping the person you will become tomorrow. Imagine waking up every morning, not asking yourself if you feel like doing something, but simply deciding to do it because you committed to it. Imagine no longer being a prisoner to your moods, your emotions, or the circumstances of the day. That shift alone can redefine your entire future. We live in a world that celebrates instant gratification. We want results and we want them now. We chase shortcuts, hacks, and quick fixes, hoping to bypass the discomfort of discipline. But true success, meaningful success, is never instant. It is earned through patience, effort, and the willingness to do the work even when no one is watching. Think of the stories we admire most. The ones that inspire us, they are never stories of people who had it easy. They are stories of perseverance, of resilience, of people who kept going when everything in them screamed to stop. They are the stories of those who chose discipline over motivation. Consider a runner training for a marathon. On the first day, motivation is high, the vision is clear, the energy is there, but what about the 30th day? When their legs are sore, when the weather is bad, when the excitement is gone? What keeps them going? It's not motivation, it's the commitment they made. It's the understanding that the goal is not achieved in a single run, but in the thousands of steps taken when no one is watching. Discipline is about making decisions based on who you want to become, not how you feel in the moment. It is about recognizing that discomfort is not a signal to stop, but a necessary part of growth. The road to anything worthwhile will be filled with moments of doubt, exhaustion, and setbacks. But it is in those moments when motivation has disappeared that your true character is built. Think about the last time you wanted to give up on something. Maybe it was a goal, a project, a dream. Maybe you told yourself you weren't cut out for it, that it was too hard, that you just didn't have the motivation anymore. But what if you had pushed through? What if you had embraced the discomfort instead of running from it? What if instead of waiting for motivation to return, you had relied on discipline to carry you forward? The people we admire, those who accomplish incredible things, aren't necessarily the most talented or the most privileged. They are the ones who refuse to quit. They are the ones who choose to act day after day, not because they always feel like it, but because they have decided that their commitment is greater than their emotions. Now, imagine if you applied that same mindset to your own life. Imagine what would happen if you showed up every day, not just when you felt like it, but because you decided to. Imagine where you would be a year from now if you stopped relying on motivation and started relying on discipline. Because at the end of the day, success isn't about how you feel. It's about what you do consistently over time. The question isn't whether you're motivated. The question is whether you're committed. And that decision, that choice is entirely up to you. We live in a world that celebrates speed. We admire those who seem to make quantum leaps, those who appear to achieve greatness overnight. The stories we tell, the headlines we read, they all make it seem like success happens in a single defining moment. But the truth is, real success, meaningful change, and true mastery are never the result of a single moment. They are the result of small, consistent actions repeated over time. We tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in a single day, yet we vastly underestimate what we can achieve over the course of a year. We set ambitious goals, aiming to change our lives in an instant, only to become discouraged when we fall short. But what if the key isn't in the grand gestures, but in the quiet daily commitments we make to ourselves? Think about a drop of water. It seems insignificant on its own, but given enough time, that drop of water can carve canyons into solid rock. The power of small daily actions is often invisible in the moment, but their impact is undeniable over time. The difference between success and failure isn't found in one big effort, but in the small choices we make consistently. Science backs this up. A study from the University of London found that on average, it takes 66 days to form a habit. Not 21 days, not 30, but 66. That means that if you decide today to commit to small positive action, writing 200 words, reading for 10 minutes, or exercising for 15, you may not see the impact immediately, but over time, these small actions compound. Imagine where you'll be in a year. It's easy to look at others who are ahead and feel like we're falling behind. We compare ourselves to those who have already achieved what we desire. And in doing so, we forget the most important part of their journey, the invisible work, the daily discipline, the moments when no one was watching, when no applause was given, when the only thing that kept them going was their own belief that small actions would lead to something greater. A bricklayer doesn't build a wall in a single day. But by showing up, by placing one brick at a time with care and precision, eventually a wall stands. A structure that can withstand storms, support weight, and last for generations. But it all started with that first brick. The same is true for any pursuit worth chasing. It's about showing up today, then tomorrow, and the day after that. It's about trusting the process, even when the results aren't immediately visible. Think of a runner training for a marathon. They don't start by running 26 miles. They start with a single mile. Then they do it again the next day. And the next, their legs hurt. They feel tired, but they show up because they know that each run, no matter how short, is a step toward their goal. Over time, what once seemed impossible becomes second nature. We admire the final product, but rarely appreciate the process. The best-selling author who releases their latest book spent years writing in silence, struggling with drafts that no one ever saw. The world-class musician who captivates audiences practiced scales for hours on end, perfecting each note when no one was listening. The entrepreneur who built a thriving business made countless small decisions that, in the moment, felt insignificant. It's not about talent or luck. It's about consistent effort. The problem is we live in a culture that demands instant results. If we don't see progress immediately, we assume something isn't working. We give up too soon, thinking that if we can't see change, it must not be happening. But real change, the kind that lasts, is like planting a seed. You water it, you nurture it, but for a long time, nothing appears to be happening. Then, one day, it breaks through the soil. And that's when everyone notices. But the work was being done long before that first green shoot emerged. We can all recall times in our lives when we wanted something so badly, only to give up when it didn't happen fast enough. But what if we had kept going? What if we had trusted that small, consistent actions would eventually lead to breakthroughs? What if instead of focusing on the outcome, we focused on the process? The greatest breakthroughs in history didn't happen in an instant. Thomas Edison didn't invent the light bulb on his first try. He failed over 1,000 times, but he kept going. He believed that each small adjustment, each experiment was bringing him closer to success. And in the end, it did. So the question is, what small action can you commit to today? Not tomorrow, not next week, today, because today is all we have. And today is the perfect day to start. Will you choose to write those 200 words? Will you choose to take a short walk? Will you choose to make that one phone call, to take that first step toward your dream? It doesn't have to be big. It just has to be consistent, because small daily actions, when repeated over time, lead to extraordinary results, the kind of results that others call luck, the kind of results that look like overnight success, but are in fact the result of unseen effort. And the best part, you don't have to wait for some perfect moment to begin. You just have to start today. Consistency is not just a practice. It is the foundation upon which trust is built. Trust is the most valuable currency in relationships, in business, and in leadership. It is not given freely, nor can it be demanded. It is earned through action, through reliability, and through the unwavering commitment to being who we say we are. When we lack consistency, we erode trust, not only with others, but within ourselves. And when we lose trust in ourselves, we begin to question our capabilities, our decisions, and our own potential. Think about a time when you made a promise to yourself. Maybe you told yourself you'd wake up early to exercise, or that you'd finally start that business, or that you'd be more present with your family. But then life happened, you hit snooze, you put off that big idea, you allowed distractions to steal your attention. And in that moment, it didn't seem like a big deal, but what really happened was something deeper, something more profound. You broke trust with yourself. And when you do that over and over again, it sends a message to your own subconscious that your word doesn't hold weight, that your commitments are flexible, that you are not someone who follows through. And the worst part, the next time you set a goal, a tiny voice whispers, "Why bother? You won't stick to it anyway." Now imagine the opposite. Imagine that every time you set a goal, you followed through. Every time you made a promise, you kept it. Imagine the confidence, the strength, the unshakable belief you would build within yourself. Because that's what consistency does. It creates proof. Proof that you are someone who shows up no matter how you feel. Proof that you can be counted on by others and by yourself. And that kind of proof is what builds an identity. When you are consistent, people notice, not because of grand gestures, but because of small, steady, reliable actions. Think about the people in your life whom you trust the most. They are not the ones who make big promises and occasionally show up. They are the ones who are there. The ones who answer when you call, the ones who follow through on their word. They are consistent. And because of that, you trust them. The same is true in business. A company that delivers quality every single time earns a reputation for reliability. A leader who listens, who supports, who acts with integrity every time becomes someone others follow willingly. But what happens when we are inconsistent? Doubt creeps in. We've all experienced it. A friend who says they'll be there but cancels last minute. A company that delivers a great product one time and a terrible one the next. A leader who makes promises but never follows through. Inconsistency breeds uncertainty, and uncertainty destroys trust. Because trust is not built in moments of greatness. It is built in the everyday actions that prove who we are. Some people believe that trust is about competence, about being the best at what we do. But think about the people you trust most. Do you trust them because they are perfect? Or do you trust them because they are there time and time again? Trust is not about brilliance. It is about dependability. It is about showing up even when it's inconvenient. It's about being there when it matters most, not just when it's easy. This is why consistency is so powerful. It is a signal to the world and to yourself that you can be counted on. That when you say you will do something, you do it. That when you set a goal, you follow through. That when you commit to a standard, you uphold it. And here's the thing, consistency is not about perfection. It's about persistence. It's about making the decision day after day to show up, even when you don't feel like it, even when the results aren't immediate, even when no one is watching, because that's the true test. It's easy to be motivated when things are exciting, when there's momentum, when people are cheering you on. But the real question is, can you be consistent when no one is clapping, when progress is slow, when the path is unclear? That's where trust is built. That's where confidence is forged. And it starts with you. If you want to build trust with others, start by building trust with yourself. Keep the promises you make to yourself. If you say you'll wake up early, wake up early. If you say you'll make a change, if you say you'll be there for someone, be there. Because if you can't trust yourself, why should anyone else? This is the difference between those who achieve great things and those who don't. It's not talent. It's not luck. It's not intelligence. It's consistency. The ability to keep going even when no one is watching. The discipline to stay the course even when there are no immediate rewards. The commitment to being the kind of person others, and more importantly, you can rely on. It is in the small moments, in the daily choices that we define who we are. Not in the grand gestures, not in the big wins, but in the quiet consistency of showing up day after day and proving through action that we are exactly who we say we are. Because in the end, trust is not built in a day. It is built every single day. Success is not found in the grand moments of triumph. It is not reserved for the few who are constantly inspired, perpetually motivated, or uniquely gifted. Success in its purest form belongs to those who have mastered the art of persistence. It belongs to those who are willing to show up day after day, even when the work is dull, even when there's no immediate reward, even when no one is watching. It belongs to those who have learned to love the boring and the repetitive. The world glorifies moments of breakthrough, the championship win, the viral success, the overnight transformation. But the truth is, these moments are just the tip of the iceberg. Beneath them lies an ocean of unseen effort, mundane repetitions, and unwavering commitment. The most extraordinary individuals, the ones we admire, are not the ones who seek constant excitement, but those who have made peace with the monotony of mastery. A famous study on world-class violinists found that the best performers weren't necessarily the most talented. They weren't the ones who were struck by lightning bolts of inspiration or those who only played when they felt like it. They were the ones who practiced relentlessly, even when it was dull, even when they were tired, even when they doubted whether it was making a difference. They showed up. They committed to the work, not just to the outcome. They didn't wait to feel motivated. They relied on discipline. In a world that glorifies passion, we are often misled into believing that we must feel inspired all the time. We chase the highs, the moments of excitement, the instant gratification of visible progress. And when the excitement fades, when the work becomes routine, we wonder if we are on the wrong path. We assume that boredom is a sign to quit, to move on to something more thrilling. But this is where the real work begins. This is where the real transformation happens. Ask yourself, are you willing to keep going when it's not thrilling? Are you willing to embrace the mundane steps that lead to greatness? Consider the greatest athletes, the most successful entrepreneurs, the most brilliant minds of our time. Their lives are not a continuous stream of exhilarating breakthroughs. They don't wake up every day feeling a surge of passion. More often than not, they wake up to the same routines, the same practices, the same unglamorous work. The difference is that they have made peace with it. They have learned to love the process, not just the result. The path to excellence is paved with repetition. The writer who publishes bestsellers is the one who writes even when the words don't come easily. The musician who captivates audiences is the one who practices scales long after the excitement has worn off. The leader who changes lives is the one who makes the tough decisions even when they don't feel like it. Think about the moments in your own life when you made progress. Was it because you had a sudden burst of inspiration, or was it because you showed up day after day, despite the boredom, despite the doubt? Real growth doesn't happen in the adrenaline-fueled moments of excitement. It happens in the small, consistent actions that no one applauds. It happens when you choose to keep going when others would stop. Discipline will take you where motivation cannot. If you can learn to love the boring parts of your work, your fitness journey, your relationships, your personal growth, you will gain an edge over those who quit when things stop being exciting. Because the ones who make it are not the ones who felt the most passion. They are the ones who showed up anyway. So the question is not whether you will feel excited about your work every day. The question is whether you are willing to keep going when you don't. Whether you are willing to embrace the dull moments, the slow progress, the unseen effort. Mastery is not found in the grand moments of achievement. It is found in the hours of quiet practice, in the unseen effort, in the willingness to keep going when it's hard. It is found in the decision to love the boring and the repetitive, because that is where true success is built. Your mind will always find an excuse. It will whisper that you're too tired, that you can start tomorrow, that this one moment of ease won't matter in the grand scheme of things. But what if I told you that every time you give in, you are not just delaying progress, you are reinforcing a habit of stopping? What if every excuse is an act of self-sabotage, a decision that weakens your ability to push forward the next time resistance arises? The truth is, resistance is the signal that you are about to grow. It is the threshold between where you are and where you could be. It is not the enemy, it is the invitation. Every challenge, every moment of struggle, every instinct to quit is an opportunity. It is a moment where you decide who you are going to be. Are you the person who succumbs to the easy path? Or are you the person who endures, who pushes through, who becomes stronger? We've all faced it, that feeling of exhaustion, that voice in our head convincing us that we've done enough. And sometimes it's convincing. But when you push past it, when you go one more step, one more rep, one more hour, something remarkable happens. You prove to yourself that you are capable of more. And that proof accumulates. It becomes evidence of your resilience, evidence that you are not at the mercy of your excuses. And before you know it, you have built an unshakable foundation of discipline. Think about the moments in life when you grew the most. They weren't the moments of comfort. They were the moments of challenge. They were the times when you doubted yourself but moved forward anyway, when you pushed through fear, when you ignored the desire to quit, when you showed up even when every part of you wanted to stay where it was safe. Growth never comes in ease. Growth comes in resistance. Imagine an athlete training for the biggest competition of their life. Do they wake up every morning feeling motivated? No. Do they always feel like showing up, sweating, pushing their bodies to the edge? Absolutely not. But they do it anyway, because they know that the only way to grow is to push through the moment when quitting feels easier. The work they put in when no one is watching, when the rewards are not immediate, when the pain is real, that is what separates them from those who dream but never achieve. If you see, motivation is fleeting. It will not always be there. It comes in waves. And if you rely on it, you will find yourself constantly stopping and starting. But discipline is built in the moments you push through when motivation is gone. It is in those moments that you carve out the identity of a person who follows through, no matter what. And that identity is powerful, because once you see yourself as someone who doesn't quit, quitting stops being an option. Picture yourself a year from now. Think about what you want to accomplish, the life you want to live, the person you want to become. Now ask yourself, what stands between you and that future? It's not some insurmountable obstacle. It's not lack of opportunity. It's not even talent. It is simply the number of times you will push through resistance instead of giving into it. That is the only variable. And here's the thing. Resistance never goes away. It shows up in new forms, in new challenges, at every level of success. The greatest people, the most accomplished, the most fulfilled, they still face resistance. The difference is they have learned to embrace it, to expect it, to welcome it as the price of growth. They don't view it as something to avoid. They see it as proof that they are on the right path. So the question is not whether you will face resistance. The question is what you will do when it comes. Will you give in? Will you listen to that voice that tells you it's okay to stop? Or will you recognize it for what it is? An opportunity, a moment to prove to yourself what you are truly capable of. Because every time you push through, you strengthen the part of you that is unbreakable. You train your mind to prioritize your future over your present comfort. And the more you do that, the easier it becomes. It shifts from a battle to a habit, from a struggle to a way of life. Until one day you look back and realize that the person you have become is the person who never quits. The person who embraces challenge, the person who, when faced with resistance, doesn't hesitate but pushes through. If you want to change your life, you don't need grand gestures or monumental efforts. You need the courage to show up every single day, even when you don't feel like it. You need to force yourself to be consistent, not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard. Discipline over motivation, small actions over time, trust through reliability, embracing the boring, pushing through resistance. These are the keys to true success. The question is not whether you can do it. The question is, will you? Force yourself to be consistent. And I promise you will be amazed by what you can achieve.